What happens when the man who owns 7 hotels becomes the guy hauling your luggage? Victor Pierce stood in the back hallway of the Grand Pines Hotel, adjusting the stiff, maroon Bellman jacket over his white shirt. A laminated trainee tag hung around his neck, reading Vince. His usually sharp haircut had been swapped for messy curls, and a fake mole dotted his cheek. He looked nothing like the CEO who bought the struggling 7 property chain 5 years ago. He had never met the staff at this location. It was one of the newer additions, acquired during the pandemic when the previous owner offloaded it for cheap. With over 300 employees across all properties and layers of middle management, no one ever saw the real owner. Corporate handled all hiring and training. That made it easy for Victor to blend in. The decision to go undercover wasn't planned. A few weeks ago, he'd gotten an anonymous letter from a guest. They didn't complain about the room or food. They wrote about how the heart of the hotel felt cold. They described being ignored at check-in, overhearing a front desk agent laugh after mispronouncing their name, and feeling like they were just a number. That stuck with Victor. So here he was, in a hotel where no one knew his face, pretending to be a new Bellman. "Vince," barked a woman's voice from the front lobby, "you're not paid to stand around." He turned to see a tall woman in her 40s, clipboard in hand, eyes sharp. Her name tag read Gretchen Front Desk Manager. "Yes, ma'am," Victor replied. "Take these bags up to 621 and move fast. That's a VIP." He grabbed the bags, nodded, and headed toward the elevator. The guest in 621 was an older man with a cane. Victor made small talk, helped him settle in, and returned to the lobby. By noon, he'd helped with luggage for over 10 guests. Some were friendly, some didn't even look at him, but what caught his attention was what happened at the front desk. A young couple approached, passports in hand. Their accents were thick, maybe Eastern European. The woman smiled nervously as she spoke in broken English. "We have reservation, under, Milanova." Gretchen didn't even look up. "That rate is $275 a night," she said flatly. The woman blinked. "No, we book online, it's say, $180. Victor froze mid-step. Gretchen tapped her keyboard. "I don't see that. It's $275 now, take it or, next please." The couple looked at each other, clearly confused. The man pulled out his phone, showing a confirmation. Gretchen didn't even glance. "That's probably old rate, you pay now or cancel." Victor's stomach tightened. He stepped closer, pretending to adjust a luggage cart. The couple eventually nodded and handed over their card. Victor couldn't miss the look on the woman's face, like she'd just been tricked and didn't know how to fight it. It happened again an hour later. A man from South America, limited English, same thing, quoted a higher rate than what he showed on his phone. This time, when he protested, Gretchen leaned in and said quietly, "You don't want problems, right? Just pay." Victor nearly dropped the luggage he was holding. He waited until the front desk cleared out, then approached the concierge, a young woman with short hair and tired eyes. "Hey," Victor said, "that couple earlier, the ones who got overcharged, is that normal?" The concierge hesitated. "You knew?" "Yeah, day one." She looked around. "You didn't hear it from me, but it's been happening for months. Gretchen says if they can't speak English well, they won't fight the bill. She calls it language surcharge." Victor's fists clenched. "Why doesn't anyone say anything?" he asked. The concierge gave a sad smile. "People have, that's why I'm stuck at concierge. I used to be front desk." Victor nodded slowly and stepped away. That night in the break room, he sat alone, the Bellman jacket hanging on the chair beside him. He stared at the floor, heart heavy. He'd built this company to be different, clean, honest, fair. And here, in one of his own hotels, his guests were being taken advantage of because they didn't speak the language. He felt sick. He didn't sleep that night. The next day, he came back early. This time, he wasn't just watching, he was documenting. Because this wasn't just about bad service. This was theft, and someone was going to answer for it. By the following morning, Victor Pierce had quietly arranged a small lapel camera inside the button of his jacket. It was subtle just enough to capture audio and video without drawing attention. He didn't want to rely on memory or second-hand accounts. He needed proof, not just for himself, but for what was coming. One thing was already clear. This wasn't going to be a private correction. It was going to be a reckoning. He reported at 6:30, hours before the lobby filled up. The early shift was quieter but no less revealing. A delivery driver dropped off crates of bottled water and kitchen supplies. Victor offered to help unload. The driver eyed him for a beat before handing him a clipboard to sign. "You knew?" the driver asked, adjusting a box on his shoulder. "Yeah, Vince Bellman." The driver let out a laugh. "Watch out for the lady at the desk. She clocks everyone. I once saw her make a dishwasher cry just for dropping a tray." Victor nodded without replying. The day built slowly. Around 8:30, a family of 5 arrived parents and 3 young kids, all carrying backpacks and looking travel-worn. The father, speaking in fluent French, approached the counter while the mother occupied the children with a coloring book. Gretchen was already at the desk, arms folded. The father spoke calmly, showing a printed reservation. "Sir, this rate isn't valid anymore," she said, voice clipped. "That's a third-party site. Our system shows $325 a night. That's what you'll be charged." "But this says $205, the father replied. Gretchen didn't budge. "That's not my problem." Victor stepped behind a pillar near the brochure rack, listening. The father's voice never rose, but his shoulders sagged as he glanced toward his wife. They exchanged quiet words in French. Then, reluctantly, he handed over his card. Victor's jaw tightened. He counted 3 separate instances of overbilling by noon. In each case, it was someone either with an accent or visibly foreign. The pattern was no longer a suspicion, it was deliberate. Later, during a lull, Victor approached the housekeeping supervisor, a tall woman named Denise who looked to be in her 50s, her gray ponytail pulled tight. "You've been here long?" he asked. 7 years, she replied, flipping through a clipboard. He handed her a towel someone had left behind. "Ever notice anything strange at the front desk?" She didn't look up. "Define strange." "Like people being treated differently." She paused, then looked at him directly. "You're not the first to ask that, but most stop asking after a while." "Why's that?" Denise narrowed her eyes. "Because this place punishes questions. Just do your job, keep your head down. That's what people learn." Victor didn't respond. He just walked back toward the lobby, his thoughts racing. That pattern questions being punished explained the silence. He'd built a company that was supposed to encourage transparency, yet here, fear was currency. At lunchtime, the concierge from the day before approached him discreetly in the hallway, near the employee lockers. "You were asking about the rate stuff," she whispered. "You need to know something else. Gretchen doesn't just target guests, she messes with schedules too." Victor raised an eyebrow. "She reduced my hours after I reported an incident. Went to HR about her yelling at a guest with a stutter. 2 weeks later, my shifts got cut. No explanation." "You document any of that?" "I tried, emails got ignored. I followed up, nothing." Victor felt the weight in his chest deepen. "How many others?" "4 that I know of, maybe more." He nodded slowly. "Thanks for telling me." "You're not going to say anything, right?" "Not yet." The rest of the day unfolded with more of the same rushed check-ins, clipped interactions, and staff walking on eggshells. Around 3 in the afternoon, a woman in a wheelchair entered the lobby. Her daughter pushed her slowly toward the front desk. The woman smiled and greeted Gretchen warmly. "Hi there, we booked an accessible suite." Gretchen didn't return the smile. She typed for a few seconds, then handed over 2 keys. "You're in 420. "Is that one of the accessible rooms?" "No, that one was given away. You booked a regular king suite." "We definitely requested accessibility." "Special requests aren't guaranteed." Victor watched the daughter's face tighten. "She can't use a tub, she needs a roll-in shower. We called 3 times to confirm." "Like I said, not guaranteed. You want to speak to someone else, call corporate." Victor stepped forward, speaking for the first time all day near the front desk. "I think there's an empty accessible room on 5, he said, pretending to check a list on his clipboard. Gretchen glanced at him sharply. "You don't handle room assignments, stay in your lane." The daughter stepped in. "If there's a room, why can't we have it?" "It's reserved." "For who?" "That's private." Victor didn't move. "I just saw housekeeping prepping that room. No one's checked into it." Gretchen's voice dropped into a warning tone. "You're a trainee. You're not qualified to speak on inventory." The daughter stared at her, then turned to Victor. "Can you show us the room?" He hesitated, then nodded. "Follow me." Gretchen called after him, but he ignored her. They took the elevator to the 5th floor. Room 512 was open, freshly made, and fully accessible. Tears welled in the daughter's eyes. "Thank you." Victor gave them the key from the desk. "I'll sort it out." Back downstairs, Gretchen was waiting, arms crossed. "You think you have authority to override me?" "I think have authority to treat guests like people." "You're done, get your stuff, you're off the floor." Victor didn't flinch. "You sure that's the move you want to make?" She stared at him. "You want me to call security?" Victor pulled the laminated badge from his neck and quietly returned it to his pocket. Then he took out his phone, tapped the camera app, and played back a 30-second clip, the sound of her telling the French guest, "That's not my problem." Her eyes darted to the screen. "What is this?" "Evidence," he replied, "and there's a lot more." She stepped back. "Who the hell are you?" Victor reached into his inside jacket pocket and took out his real ID. He held it up. The silence in the lobby could have cracked glass. "I'm Victor Pierce. I own this hotel." Gretchen's face went pale. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. "You've been exploiting guests based on language and background," he said. "You've retaliated against staff, manipulated schedules, and denied accommodations to people who needed them. You're done. Leave now." "I can explain." "No, you can leave." He turned to the security guard at the far end of the lobby. "Escort her out. She's no longer employed here." The guard hesitated, then stepped forward. Gretchen stood frozen, then suddenly turned and stormed out without another word. Victor turned to the front desk agents who had gathered nearby, eyes wide. "We're going to do this differently now," he said. "No more fear, no more silence." They didn't applaud, they didn't cheer. But one agent, a young man with a nervous expression, gave a small nod. That was enough. Victor spent the rest of the afternoon in the back office, pulling schedules, reviewing footage, and listening. Not just to complaints, but to the people who had endured all of it and kept showing up anyway. He wasn't just going to patch the cracks. He was going to tear down the whole wall and rebuild it. And this time, he'd be watching. Victor stood in the back office, the door shut behind him, a quiet hum from the ceiling vent the only sound. He had asked for the employee schedule logs, time-off requests, and guest complaint reports from the past 6 months. A young HR rep from corporate had flown in that morning and now sat across from him, watching him sift through paperwork with a tight jaw. Did no one flag the guest refunds? Victor asked, not looking up. The rep shifted uneasily. There were a few, but they were marked as rate adjustments for third-party error. We didn't see a pattern. Victor set the papers down. You didn't see a pattern because no one was looking for one. He pushed the stack away and stood. We're going to do this room by room. I want everyone in one place. No workarounds, no side conversations. I'll speak to them directly. It was nearly 4 in the afternoon when the conference room filled with hotel staff. Front desk agents, housekeepers, maintenance techs, concierges, even a few kitchen workers stood shoulder to shoulder. Some leaned against the wall, others sat with folded arms, their faces wary. Victor stood at the front, no badge, no disguise, just the man behind the name on their paychecks. He didn't bother with introductions. "I'm not here to explain what happened," he said. "I'm here to fix it." The room stayed quiet. He turned to a young man in a blue shirt sitting near the window. "What's your name?" "Marcus." "You work the front." Marcus nodded. "Nights mostly." "Did you ever see anything that didn't sit right?" Marcus hesitated, then leaned forward slightly. "Sometimes I'd come in and find notes on the desk highlighted watch for rate confusion under certain flagged reservations. I didn't understand it at first. Then I noticed those were always international guests." Victor didn't interrupt. He let the silence stretch until Marcus added, "When I asked about it once, I got pulled into a storage room and told to stick to the script if I wanted to keep my rotation." Victor turned to a woman standing near the back with a laundry badge clipped to her apron. "You." She looked startled. "I just do linens. I don't really see the front." "Anyone ever threaten your hours?" She nodded slowly. "When my son had surgery, I asked for 2 days off. I had the forms, the documents, everything. I was told if I missed more than one shift, my dependability score would drop. Ended up switching shifts with another housekeeper who had to work doubles just to cover for me." Victor looked around the room. Who here has felt like they couldn't speak up? Hands rose, not one or two, more than half. He pointed to the concierge, the same woman who had first told him about the rate abuse. "Come up here." She hesitated, then made her way to the front of the room. "What's your name?" "Aaliyah." "You mentioned retaliation. Anything else you didn't say before?" Leah looked down. There were nights Gretchen would call the desk from her personal number and ask if certain guests had accents. If they did, she'd come in, override the system, and manually adjust the rate. She said it was about protecting the margin. Victor turned to the HR rep without speaking. The rep nodded and began typing. He looked at Leah again. "Why didn't you go higher?" "I did. I emailed corporate twice. Got a generic reply both times." Victor exhaled slowly. "You're not concierge anymore. As of now, you're assistant guest services manager." Leah froze. "What?" "You heard me. You've been doing the job already. Now it's official. You'll report directly to me until we hire a new general manager." A murmur passed through the room, cautious but growing. Victor walked to the center. This hotel didn't fail because of one person. It failed because people got used to silence. I won't let that happen again. There will be changes. Some of them start today. He turned to the door. "Marcus, come with me." They walked back into the lobby, now empty of guests as housekeeping turned over rooms for the evening arrivals. Victor stopped by the front desk and pointed to the drawer beneath the terminal. "Open that." Marcus knelt and pulled it open. Inside were printed rate sheets, some with guest names hand-written on sticky notes. Red marker circled certain lines. One note read "Watch for accent." Confirm card up front. Victor took a photo and placed the paper in a folder. "We'll collect everything. This stops now." They didn't return to the conference room. Instead, Victor pulled every front desk log from the past 2 weeks and began comparing the names to booking times on the internal system. The pattern was undeniable. He found over 24 cases where electronic reservations were overridden manually to increase the rate. By 7, the regional compliance officer had arrived and set up in the HR office. Victor didn't leave. He personally met with each front desk agent, one by one, asking them what they knew, what they'd seen, and why they hadn't spoken. One agent, a man in his early 30s, admitted he'd been told to prioritize margin control during peak hours. I didn't know what that meant at first. Then it became clear. I didn't feel like I could refuse. Victor didn't raise his voice. He looked at him for a long moment, then said, "You're going to retrain under Leah. If I hear the same thing again, you'll be out." Others weren't given that grace. A woman who had personally overridden 5 bookings in one day and later lied about it in her statement was dismissed on the spot. There were no second chances for deliberate theft. By the time the sun dipped below the skyline, Victor stood outside the staff entrance with the operations manager for the property, a man named Darren who had been on vacation during the chaos. "I leave for 6 days and come back to a full investigation," Darren said, rubbing his temple. "You weren't here," Victor said, "but I expect you to be here now, every day. No more remote approvals, no more blind delegation." Darren nodded, understood. Victor walked the perimeter of the building as staff clocked out. A few nodded politely. Some looked away. Others watched him, uncertain what came next. Near the side lot, a young housekeeper sat on a bench, tying her shoes. She looked up as he passed. "You own this place?" she asked. "I do." She nodded. "Then don't just fire the bad ones. Give us more help. We don't have enough hands on weekends. Cleaned 16 rooms myself last Saturday." Victor paused. "I'll fix that." "You sure?" He looked her in the eye. "Yes." She picked up her tote and walked inside. Victor stood there a moment longer, the wind lifting the edge of his coat. He didn't feel triumphant. He felt responsible. Tomorrow, they'd begin interviews for a new general manager. They'd launch a direct reporting channel for staff complaints, one that bypassed local leadership entirely. They'd bring in guest services experts to retrain the front desk and offer every dismissed guest a refund and written apology. But none of that would matter if he vanished again. So he didn't. He booked a room under his real name, 5th floor, corner suite. For the first time in 5 years, the owner would be sleeping in his own hotel. Victor's second night in the hotel was quiet. He kept the curtains open, watching the lights of the parking lot fade as the last shift change took place. The corner suite was spacious, but he didn't sleep much. His mind ran over structure, not scenery. How many staff were actually needed to cover weekends, how many full-time positions were being stretched across 2 jobs, how long it would take to rebuild trust. By 6 in the morning, he was already dressed, back in the staff office with a tablet full of notes. The regional HR lead, Erica, had arrived before dawn, reviewing documentation from the past 3 months. She didn't ask questions. She just handed him a clipboard. Exit interviews with dismissed staff are complete. The ones who misled or retaliated, none of them denied it. They just assumed no one would ever care enough to check. Victor nodded once, then motioned toward the hallway. "Bring in Leah." When Leah entered, she looked unsure, her uniform newly pressed but her shoulders tense. Victor didn't offer a chair. "We're finalizing the guest service overhaul. You'll have 2 new agents by next week. One bilingual, one with ADA compliance experience." She blinked. "You're serious?" "Fully trained, they're coming from sister properties. Until then, you'll run the desk with Marcus. No one else stays unless you sign off on them." Leah folded her arms, "And the ones who stood by while it happened." They'll get one shot in a retraining block. Evaluate them honestly. If they're not fit, they go. She nodded slowly. I can do that. You already have, don't let up now. By 7, the lobby was active guests checking out, staff rotating in. Victor didn't just observe, he walked the floor. A mother with a stroller struggled to balance her bags while trying to open the front door. He opened it for her himself. A maintenance tech wrestled with a faulty lobby panel. Victor held the flashlight steady while he worked. In the staff hallway, he passed Denise, the housekeeping supervisor, who was tapping on a wall-mounted schedule board. We're still short on weekends, she said without turning. I know. I'm not asking for overtime, I'm asking for bodies. Victor pulled out his phone. We have 4 part-timers from the downtown location willing to rotate here on Saturdays and Sundays for the next month. She turned. You already called them. Last night, they'll be here by next weekend. Let me know who needs to overlap for training. Denise gave a single nod, then walked off without another word. Mid-morning, Victor sat in the break room with one of the kitchen crew, a quiet man named Arturo who had been at the hotel for nearly 2 years. He rarely spoke, but Victor had noticed him working through both breakfast and lunch prep without pause. You've got the highest clocked hours in this building, Victor said, handing him a cold water bottle. I cover breakfast, sometimes lunch when they're short. You ever get a full day off? Arturo shrugged, not if someone calls out. Victor leaned forward. You're not salaried, that means you're not interchangeable. You'll get a second-line cook by next Friday. Until then, you're not allowed to work both shifts in one day. Understood. Arturo stared at him for a moment, then nodded. At noon, a family from Korea approached the front desk. The father spoke fluent English, but the mother and grandmother did not. Leah greeted them warmly, switched the system interface to Korean with a single tap, and walked them through the check-in process with quiet efficiency. No stress, no tension, no corners cut. Victor stood back, arms folded, watching. Later, in a staff meeting held in the same conference room as the day before, Victor addressed the team again. This time, the room was smaller. The ones who had earned their place were invited. The rest had been let go or reassigned. We've made the first round of changes, he said, but culture doesn't shift with policy, it shifts with people. Every one of you who stayed is here because you chose to act with integrity, even when it cost you. He looked at Marcus. You'll shadow the assistant GM at our flagship property next month, full week, all expenses covered. The young man's eyes widened. He didn't speak, just gave a single nod. Victor turned to Denise. You'll get hiring authority for weekend staff, no more waiting for corporate approval. She raised an eyebrow. That mean I can drop the temp agency? Effective immediately. She allowed herself a tired smile. He continued. The language-based targeting we saw was a violation of our core values and legal standards. Every guest who was impacted will receive a refund and a written apology. I'll sign those myself. We'll also offer them a complimentary stay, not to win them back, but because it's the right thing to do. No one clapped, they listened. Victor paced slowly. This hotel will install anonymous reporting terminals for staff, one in the break room, one near the loading dock. You'll be able to report misconduct directly to corporate HR, bypassing all local leadership. No one will know who filed what. No one will be punished for speaking. He stopped near Leah. And effective today, you'll serve as interim general manager. She blinked. I thought you were bringing someone in. I was, changed my mind. I've never run a property. You've run the front line under pressure. That beats theory. She looked around the room. If I mess up. You won't, but if you do, you'll own it. That's more than most ever do. Outside, the rain had begun just a soft drizzle brushing the windows. Victor dismissed the meeting and asked Leah to walk with him through the guest areas. As they moved through the corridors, she asked without looking at him, "Why come here yourself? You could have sent a consultant." "I used to believe in delegation," Victor said. "Now I believe in presence." They passed the elevator. A man and his young daughter waited, the girl waving at Leah. She waved back. Victor paused. "One more thing," he said. "Don't let this place go back to sleep." Leah nodded. "It won't, not on my watch." That evening, Victor checked out. He didn't say goodbye. He didn't need to. He left a single note in the break room, taped to the wall above the time clock. It read, "Silence built this mess. Truth fixed it. Keep speaking." The staff found it the next morning. And this time, no one threw it away.